Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet Nashtaprayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttama Shloke Bhaktirbhavati Naistike Srinvata Swakatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtanaha Hridayantastoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Hare Krishna. Today we will be reading from Canto 3, Chapter 16, verse 36. तयोरसयोरसुरयोरध्य तेजसा यमयोरिवः आक्षिप्तं तेज एतर्हि भगवांस्तद्विदित्सति. Synonyms. Tayo, of them. Asurayo, of the two asuras. Adya, today. Tejasa, by the prowess. Yama, Yuho, of the twins. He, certainly. Vaha, all of you, of all you. Demigods. Akshiptam, agitated. Tejaha, power. Etarhi, thus certainly. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tat, that. Viditsati, desires to do. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Sharanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. It is the province of these twin asuras, demons, that has disturbed you, for it has minimized your power. There is no remedy within my power, however, for it is the Lord Himself who desires to do all this. Purport. Although Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, formerly Jaya and Vijaya, became asuras, the demigods of this material world could not control them. And therefore, Lord Brahma said that neither he nor all the demigods could counteract the disturbance they created. They came within the material world by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he alone could counteract such disturbances. In other words, although Jaya and Vijaya assumed the bodies of asuras, they remained more powerful than anyone, thus proving that the Supreme Personality of Godhead desired to fight because the fighting spirit is also within him. He is the original in everything, but when he desires to fight, he must fight with the devotee. Therefore, by his desire only were Jaya and Vijaya cursed by the Kumaras. The Lord ordered the gatekeepers to go down to the material world to become his enemies so that he could fight with them and his fighting desires would be satisfied by the service of his personal devotees. Brahma assured the demigods that the situation created by the darkness, for which they were disturbed, was the desire of the Supreme Lord. He wanted to show that even though these two attendants were coming in the forms of the demons, they were very powerful, greater than the demigods, who could not control them. No one can surpass the acts of the Supreme Lord. The demigods were also advised not to counteract this incident because it was ordered by the Lord. Similarly, anyone who is ordered by the Lord to perform some action in this material world, especially preaching His glories, cannot be counteracted by anyone. The will of the Lord is executed under all circumstances. Let's offer some prayers and then we'll have some discussion. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We'll read the translation again and then. Translation. It is the prowess of these twin asuras, demons, that has disturbed you, for it has minimized your power. There is no remedy within my power, however, for it is the Lord Himself who desires to do all this. So we are almost just, apart, other than one words that's going to be discussed tomorrow, we are almost at the end of this section of the discussion between Lord Brahma and demigods, which spanned the whole of chapter 15 and chapter 16. So today, like with every purport of Srila Prabhupada, he kind of packs the purport with so many directions that we can have discussion. But considering that we are almost at the end of the whole discussion, and especially this pastime of Kumaras and Jaya Vijaya, I wanted to just look at this pastime from through four devotees and how they've reacted to that specific situation that's unfolding in front of them, and also what are some of the lessons that we can kind of learn through their reactions. And so predominantly I've taken the basis for my class I've taken from this specific sentence of Lord Brahma, where he's saying in the translation, there is no remedy within my power. However, for it is the Lord Himself who decides to do all this. So that's the basis that I'm trying to structure the discussion around. So the four devotees that there are obviously a lot of devotees within, lot of personalities themselves involved in this pastime. We have Lord Vishnu himself, we have Lakshmi Devi, and before that, there are also obviously Kashyapa and Mother Diti. But predominantly, the discussion that I want to center around is of four devotees, as I said. First, starting with Jaya Vijaya and Kumaras, and then Lord Brahma, and finally the demigods. Is that the discussion started between Lord Brahma and demigods. We'll also be discussing them. And because Jaya Vijaya and Kumaras are two of the most central figures in this whole unfolding of this pastime of the Lord's desire to fight. So we'll also be discussing about them. So starting with Jaya Vijaya, as Srila Prabhupada is clearly explaining in his purport, where he says, therefore by his desire only were Jaya and Vijaya cursed by the Kumaras. So Jaya and Vijaya, when all of this, when Kumaras were entering into the Vaikuntha, or even much before that, when they actually stopped Mother Lakshmi from entering into Vaikuntha because the Lord was taking a nap. Through all of this pastime, they were just in their heads and in their minds and in their hearts, it was just that they were performing their devotional service. And when everything was kind of unfolding in front of them, where they end up stopping Kumaras, and then Kumaras curse them and all of this, we actually through this whole pastime, when all of this was unfolding, when in fact Jay and Vijay were only trying to just serve the Lord to the best of their capabilities, we don't ever see Jay and Vijay actually ever complaining about the unjust trouble that they are being put into. In some ways, it kind of feels very perplexing. Just because the Lord desired to fight, how is it that for his desire to fight, how is it that Jaya Vijaya have to go through all of this trouble and turmoil of not just leaving Vaikuntha and all of that, but also kind of going through that of this heavy burden of having to know that they have displeased Mother Lakshmi and they have displeased the Kumaras. So that in itself is a huge thing. And added to that is also of the whole. Externally they're obviously confused of what is happening and all of that, but internally in their hearts it was always because they are so well placed with their surrender, but internally because in their hearts it was always that the Lord himself also knew that for both Jaya and Vijaya, the predominant factor of their lives is not what happens with them, but what pleases the Lord. If pleasing the Lord means that they have to undergo some of the troubles like what they're going through of leaving the personal service of the Lord or leaving the residence within the Vaikuntha, for which we have been struggling to go back to, and they both of them were in that place. But for them, the most valuable thing was of being of some service to the Lord. And for being of some service to the Lord, if the need be that they have to let go of that personal association of the Lord and serving him in any capacity that he desires so, And if that means that they have to not only undergo of letting go of Vaikuntha, but also of going through this whole turmoil of the situation, it's not a question of should we, or that question never arises for Jaya Vijaya. So through this all pastime, we kind of, as I said, there was never a question of for them of ever complaining or having this grudge against Kumaras or the Lord himself of Mother Lakshmi, saying that, hey, we were just serving, and just because we are serving here, you can't take us for granted. So there was never that question from Jaya Vijaya. So in spite of everything that's happening they were more than willing to go through all of them, provided that's the Lord's plan. And in their hearts of hearts, even though externally there was a lot of confusion for themselves also, but internally they knew, as Radhika Raman Prabhu was saying in the retreat that happened in Gita Nagari, Prahlad Maharaj in his heart knew that it was not a belief for Prahlad Maharaj. He knew that Lord is going to protect him. And so similarly, Jay and Vijay also, it was not a belief that, oh, maybe the Lord has some plan, so let's just try to tolerate it. But that it's not a tolerating thing for Jay and Vijay. It's more about they knew that this is the Lord's plan and we are just okay with it. So it was not a point of tolerance, but it was more, it was as much as pleasure for Jay and Vijaya to kind of be part of this pastime of uh, going out of Vaikuntha, as much as it was pleasure for them to be in Vaikuntha and serve the Lord as his doorkeepers. So either of the situation, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, either of the situation, either it be in um, I think in this verse comes in Bali Maharaj or somewhere, where either it could be the heavens or the hell. As long as I'm being of some service to you, I'm happy. So if Jay Vijay also are in that situation right now, their reaction to the situation that is kind of unfolding in front of them is, whatever happens, my dear Lord, we are happy and we just want to serve you. And then comes the Kumaras, who, for externally seeing, from a mortal point of view, for whatever the trouble that in some sense Jay and Vijay are going through, Kumaras could be kind of said as, hey, you are the reason of it. And like Jay Vijaya, Kumaras were nothing but just the puppets in this whole enactment of the pastime that the Lord is trying to unfold and orchestrate. And for Jay Vijaya, like Jay Vijaya also, when finally the Lord Padmanabha comes and explains to all three of them, all six of them, saying that, hey, this is my plan. And once that the whole thing was really revealed to them, like Jai Vijay again, Kumaras accepted the plan, and not just accepted the plan. In the case of Jai Vijay, as they said, like they just not accepted the plan, but they were happy to be part of it. And Kumaras, their reaction was in a way slightly different, where they not only accepted the plan, but they also owned up to the apparent quote unquote mistake that they have performed of cursing both Jaya and Vijaya. How do we know that? Is when they were once the Lord has spoken whatever he has to speak, and when Kumaras were responding back to the Lord. So the initial section of that, they're obviously glorifying the Lord and all of that. But in one of the verses, they say that they acknowledge that they've cursed two faultless persons, and they are ready to accept any punishment that the Lord is ready to give them without duplicity. So by in saying so, they're kind of acknowledging and owning and being responsible for the action they have committed, even though they, in a bigger sense, they understand that it is the Lord's desire that whatever has to manifest has happened. But on our part, we still have to take the responsibility. And even though it was the Lord's desire that the Jay Vijay have to be cursed and then have to let go of their service in Vaikuntha and all of that, they still are conscious and present enough in that situation to still be responsible for action that they are doing, and still owning up and saying that, my dear Lord, um, we are so sorry that this situation has happened, and we did actually curse two faultless persons, because in sentences that you're saying, it is kind of clear that everything is your plan, and Jay Vijaya didn't had any fault of their own, because like us, they're also just being the puppets in your overall master plan. And it was not right on our part to actually have cursed them, And for that, if there is any punishment or any curse that you want to bestow on us, we are ready to accept it. And the specific word that they again use is the duplicity, where so duplicity, I guess, as is explained as um, the of not being of two minds, right? So here, like Jaya Vijaya, it was not that they were grudgingly accepting, okay, if it has to be there, then just can't do anything, let's just accept it. Unlike, so similar like Jaya Vijaya, Kumaras are also kind of specifically using the words duplicity, saying that we are just happy. Whatever is your plan, if your plan is to kind of make us look bad as some people, as somebody who kind of um, without without having control, kind of cursing the residents of Vaikuntha. If that's a blame that in future some devotees or some people could kind of put it on us, but we are okay because it is your plan, and for your happiness and for your plan to kind of orchestrate and to reveal itself. And as Srila Prabhupada puts it in that and the end of the purport, the will of the Lord is executed is under all circumstances. If your will has to be executed, and for that, if any trouble that we have to go through or any blame that we have to incur on us, we are happy to do that. And that too, we will be able, we will accept all of that, as they are saying, we shall accept any punishment without duplicity. So they're just happy. And next comes Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is revealing everything to the demigods. So demigods in the beginning of the 5th chapter, which happens to be the first 10 verses, they approach Lord Brahma saying that there's this terrible thing happening across the universe. And if we actually see in the combination of 15th and 16th chapter, there are total 87 verses, and around 70 verses are Lord Brahma explaining to demigods about the cause of their whole pain and what is happening and what happened, why are they having the trouble and all of that. And finally, one saying through all of that, his final conclusion, interestingly, is there's no remedy within my power. However, for it is the Lord himself who desires to all this. So he's spending almost, let's say, if you have to speak 70 verses, let's say it takes 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So demigods came to him approaching that there's a lot of trouble that we are going through. And for almost 30 to 45 minutes, he has explained everything. And one saying that finally his conclusion is there is nothing in my power that I can do. And all we have to do is just tolerate. And interestingly, in the beginning of the chapter 15, the way Lord Brahma begins is also interesting. That when I was kind of trying to correlate the whole thing, it felt interesting to me, where Lord Brahma begins the whole discussion by saying, my sons, my 4 sons, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara, who were born from my mind. So now in this verse, and even all through that, he's acknowledging the pain and the trouble that the demigods are going through. And he's also acknowledging the role that his own sons has played in this present situation. But finally, he's saying that even though everything in some ways is happening by my subordinates, and it might appear that because I am the highest living being in this universe, it might appear that everything is under my control. But finally, is clarifying that everything is happening just due to Lord's desire, and there is nothing that I can do. And also, it says that there is no remedy within my power. The word that Srila Prabhupada also uses is interesting. He uses there is no remedy within my power. And if we look back at just as a story point of view, at this point, as Srila Prabhupada also is explaining, where Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu are so powerful, but in doing so, one of the statements that Srila Prabhupada also uses is the demigods were also advised not to try to counteract this incident because it was ordered by the Lord. And if you just take this sentence out of the consideration and just look at it from a story point of view, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu at this point of time are just in the womb of Mother Diti. And Lord Brahma himself is the supreme living being in this entire universe. And like how Indra and the demigods kind of wanted to destroy Prahlad Maharaj when he was in womb, maybe Lord Brahma could have actually suggested that right now they're in the womb, and if we go and explain to Kashyapa that there's this terrible thing that these two personalities are going to cause, maybe he could have accepted. But him going ahead and saying, even though at this point the Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu are not physically present, and Lord Brahma being the supreme living being, his reaction to this situation was, there is nothing in my control, or there's no remedy in my power, kind of feels not just interesting but also odd. So this point is how all three of them were reacting, where Jaya Vijaya reacted by accepting, happy to be part of the Lord. Kumara's reaction was taking responsibility, and Lord Brahma's reaction was, there is nothing in kind of clarifying and giving explanation to the demigods. There's nothing in my power. And now we'll slightly discuss about some of the lessons that these three personalities are trying to give us. And then finally, we'll discuss about the demigods. So in the case of all three personalities, Jaya Vijaya, Kumaras, Lord Brahma, it goes on to show that they have not only surrendered their mind, body, and words, but in this specific pastime, they're also showing they have also surrendered their free will for the pleasure of the Lord. And if you see the parallels of how these three personalities are kind of reacting or enacting in this pastime, we see the parallels from Ramayana. When Mother Sita was abducted, when Ravana came and Mother Sita was abducted, for the next 11 months, the pain that Mother Sita went through was not just unimaginable, but it did. The pain that she was going through was unimaginable, of losing the personal association of the Lord. Adding on to that, there was this extreme humiliation that all the Rakshasas who were in Ashoka Vatika were kind of putting her through. And on top of it, there were also the threats, the physical and emotional and all kinds of threats that Ravana was throwing onto her, saying that if you don't agree for marrying me, then I'm going to kill you, or various ways that Ravana was threatening her, and the extreme humiliation. And then finally, again, losing the personal association of the Lord. In this case, also we see that the Jaya Vijaya are losing the personal association of the Lord. And in some ways, Lord Brahma and Kumaras are ready to face the extreme humiliation of showing themselves, Lord Brahma showing himself as being powerless, and Kumaras showing themselves as being, are kind of okay to face this extreme humiliation of being somebody who curses Vaikuntha Vasis. And Mother Sita, like Jai Vijaya, Kumaras, and Lord Brahma, her pleasure was always, in spite of going through all of that, her pleasure was not in anticipation of that, oh, one day this pain will go away. Her pleasure, or going through, her strength of going through all of the trouble was not in that point, that after 11 months or some time, all of this will go away. But her pleasure was just in giving the glorification, of the anticipation of the glorification that the Lord Ramachandra will get as the killer of Ravana. So that was her anticipation of happiness. She was not worried about the unjust treatment that she's facing. So, like in the case of Jai Vijay or the Kumaras, the worry was not about the unjust treatment, but just of the anticipation of the glorification that the Lord Ramachandra, in this case of Mother Sita Ramachandra, and in the case of Jai Vijaya and the Kumaras, the beautiful incarnations of Varahadev, Narsimadev, Ramachandra himself, because Ravana and Kumbhakarna again were Jai Vijaya, and then Lord Krishna himself, the anticipation of the glorification that the Lord will get through this enactment of this pastime. So that was the seed of the happiness in their hearts. So was for Mother Sita, where her anticipation of that pleasure time was being that, oh, Ramachandra will certainly be glorified. And so similarly for Jay and Vijay and Kumaras also, their happiness was in that anticipation that the Lord will be glorified. And in achieving that, if for whatever amount of time, if we have to go through individually a lot of pain and a lot of losing of that personal association of the Lord, we are okay to go through that. And again, like Lord Brahma, as is saying that there's nothing in my power, we also see that Mother Sita herself in Ramayana also says that It is a moment's time for her to kill Ravana, his entire army, and destroy Lanka. But she chooses not to do, but kind of sits in Ashokavana as a powerless, pitiable lady, in spite of having this huge power to take control of the situation herself. But she chooses to not to do that. And in fact, she also stops Hanumanji from acting in a way that stops the glory from the Lord, when he says that, when he kind of um, volunteers to take Mother Sita out of Lanka, she says that's so taking me out of Lanka is not the important thing, but the glorification that Ramchandra will get as the killer of Ravana and protecting me is the most important thing. And for that to happen, if there is whatever amount of time that I have to go through the trouble, it's not a question of should I or should I not. And even interestingly, even Hanumanji, when he was destroying Ashoka Vatika, he was not only destroying, it was not a random destruction that he was doing, but his purpose was also that I should destroy the Ashoka Vatika to the point where I can get to see Ravana and understand his powers, so that I can assist Ramachandra in his war by saying that Ravana is this kind of personality, he has these powers and all of that. So ultimately, both Hanumanji and Mother Sita, they were ready to show the prowess if it's required in the service of the Lord. But if it is not required in the service of the Lord, and if the Lord's desire and the Lord's will, as Srila Prabhupada put it, is to be this helpless, powerless personality is just going through the rigors of the day, they are okay to do that. And Lord Brahma is kind of also epitomizing by saying that there is nothing in my power. And we also parallelly see that there are instances where the sages, like we see in the instance of King Vena, where if it's the Lord's desire and the Lord's will that the sages have to act, the sages did act in the case of King Vena, because ultimately they knew that Prithu Maharaj is going to appear, and for that to happen, King Vena has to die. So the power in Lord Brahma himself is there, but him saying there is nothing in my power is acknowledging, and him surrendering his free will, saying that, my dear Lord, if it is your desire that everything has to happen, and for that, as Srila Prabhupada also put it, making sure that there's no distraction or as he says, counteracting this incident that has to happen. I'm okay to go. I'm okay to do that. And finally, again, the demigods, as we see that Jay Vijay and Kumaras, are demigods, are demonstrating surrendering of free will, which in many cases I it feels quite amazed. I feel quite amazed by what they're doing, but it's something that I don't think I'm at a point where I can kind of follow exactly in their footsteps. And out of all the personalities involved, demigods in themselves were the most perplexed lot. They themselves, other than the troubles that the other three personalities were going through, they themselves were also going through a lot of trouble, because everything was chaotic in the universe. And externally, they knew the cause as the pregnancy of Diti, but they didn't understand what was the inner doings of what is happening. And in their perplexity, rather than, as Srila Prabhupada puts it, rather than trying to counteract the incident, rather than resorting to their making go their own plans, what they end up doing is approach Lord Brahma, and they presented their problem, saying, my dear Lord Brahma, this is the problem, what do we do? And in return, the response they received was, just be patient and wait for the Lord to act. When Lord Brahma said that there's nothing in my power, and he further explains in the next verse, when he said that there's nothing in his power, he was not kind of rejecting the trouble and the pain that demigods are going through. He's acknowledging that pain, but he's saying that in this situation, all we have to do is kind of follow the Krishna's will and just be patient and wait for the Lord to act. Lord Brahma not only gave them the bigger picture of not only help them understand the present situation, but also gave them the bigger picture, and more importantly, the assurance that the Lord will act. So Jay Vijaya, Jay Vijaya and Kumaras, in their moment of crisis, had the audience of the Lord, because they were physically present, and the Lord himself, Lord Padmanabha himself, came and explained to them what happened and how is it that it was his plan. They had the blessed opportunity of being in the audience of the Lord to hear from him and understand. So that was the saving grace to some degree of Jay Vijay and Kumaras. And in most of our lives, it might not be possible that we actually will have the audience of the Lord. And as Radhika Raman Prabhu was putting it in his class, even if we see the Lord, I don't think we are at the situation, at least myself personally, where I can understand that it is the Lord himself who is coming and explaining and speaking. And whereas Lord Brahma, so that the situation of Jai Vijay, their reaction and the lessons might not exactly be on a level, on a physical level and on the spiritual level for us to kind of exactly replicate, because we might not have that blessed opportunity of being in the audience of the Lord. And next comes Lord Brahma, who had the total dependence on the Lord, because whatever is happening, he had the total dependence of the Lord for him to reveal everything in his heart. He had this conviction that the Lord will reveal everything in his heart as long as he is approaching him. And maybe I do not have the total dependence on the Lord for the Lord to reveal everything in my heart. But Srimad Bhagavatam, as amazing it is also the best hope-giving medicine that we have. And Srimad Bhagavatam through this pastime is not just demonstrating how Jaya Vijaya, Kumaras, and Lord Brahma reacted and helped us understand the ultimate goal that we have to achieve, but is also presenting to us the demigods who, in some ways, are on our level, because it was chaotic for them. They didn't know what to do. They didn't had like most of our cases, they didn't have the opportunity to have the audience of the Lord. And in some cases, they also knew that the Lord will not reveal at this point everything to their heart. And in what they did in their moment of crisis and their perplexity, as we just discussed, was approaching Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma then gave them assurance that, yes, you're acknowledging the problem that they're going through, assurance that the Lord will act. And right now, what we have to do is patiently wait for the Lord to act. And in doing so, whatever we can do, we can do. So as long as we are also under the shelter of the devotees like Lord Brahma, who have that total dependence on the Lord, where the Lord reveals everything in their hearts. And as long as we are, all we have to do, like the demigods, is in our moment of crisis, and even in otherwise, is just taking the shelter of devotees like Lord Brahma. I'm sure like all of us are blessed with so many devotees like Lord Brahma who have the total utter dependence on the Lord. Our own spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada himself, through these purports, and many of the wonderful devotees that we are blessed with, will always be assisting lords. Not only will we have, in this case, the demigods, not only that they had this assurance that the problem will go away, but in a bigger picture, now they are part of the Lord's plan and the Lord's will that is going to enact. So even in our case, as long as we are under the shelter of Lord Brahma, not only the troubles that will go away, but in the bigger picture, the most important thing is we'll always be assisting Lord in his plans. And thereby, as Srila Prabhupada put it in one of his classes, where Srila Prabhupada says that as long as Krishna will not interfere with you, but Krishna says that if you want actual happiness, liberation, then follow what I say. That is Krishna's request. So as long as we are under the shelter of the devotees like Lord Brahma and assisting Lord's plan and saying that, as Arjuna said, willing to say Karishya Vachanam Tava, and Srila Prabhupada put it, we'll have actual happiness. And with that, I'll end the discussion. Thank you, everyone. If there are any corrections or comments, the floor is for you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. One sentence I really liked that you said was that Sita Devi was not concerned that she get, free from the, that she's free from Ravana's, prison or Ashok Vatika, and but what she was concerned is that the Lord must be glorified. And that's just very amazing, because that part, that and then the end when she's also in exile, that really kind of bothers a person. And it was the first time actually someone said it like this, that that she wasn't really concerned if she's separated from Ram. She's concerned, she's missing him in separation, but her main concern is that the Lord must be glorified. It's very beautiful. Thank you.
I'm just repeating what I heard from other classes.
Thank you.
And one more point which I think is presented many times is that we don't have to be the advocates for all these devotees. They're potent enough and strong enough to present their own cases, and what they're right now doing is accepting. So thank you, Prabhu. If nothing, then I think we can end.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nice class. So I was just thinking about the same point I was sharing yesterday. I think Jaya Vijaya, I mean, you also mentioned it, they never kind of complain. They're always looking for the pleasure of the Lord, right? So here the Lord came in person and telling that it is my plan. But I mean, of course, they came to know a little later, right? In the beginning, also they were kind of, apologizing for the mistake that they did stopping Kumaras, right? So but then it was very nice, but yeah, when the difficulties happens, so I mean in our lives, so I mean there will be a large, sanction is there, of course, otherwise nothing happens. It may not be his will, but the sanction is there. So but how do we react? He may not come, or somebody may not come, and it is there, but we know from the shastra that without Lord's sanction, or because of our past karma, something might wrong happen. So yeah, how do we take it up? It is very nice lesson from the Jay and Vijaya past temple. So sometimes Lord of course, many times Lord will not come and tell us, right? Then it's easy. I don't know. It may not be easy, but yeah, it looks like it is easy. But yeah, we will more was saying that why is it happening, right? Why are you doing this? Kumaras are not saying that they are doing their service, and then Lord came and saying it is my wish that you have to go back, or you are getting cursed and all. Right? So very nice. Thank you.
So we'll end here.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Once
again, thank you so much for all of you joining.